Okay, guys, welcome to today's webinar. And Robbie, why don't you just kick us off by giving us your top 3 best practices on why using 3D in your e-commerce is a good idea?
So I would say, to start with, I would say price. You've always got to think about the bottom line, especially, we're quite a small brand. So being quite a small brand, there's a limited budget, as a lot of, obviously a lot of small brands have. And I was really surprised, actually. I was really surprised at the cost versus photography. So we started with getting professional photographer to do all our product e-com shots for the website. And as you guys will know, probably most people will know, photography is very expensive. Anyone who's been married, had a wedding, photographers cost a fortune. And it's the same if you're getting just standard e-com shots for your website, not even lifestyle shots or kind of shots with props. Just the standard shots cost a fortune. So we started our brand probably 3 years ago. We started with a photographer and we were like, yikes, it costs a fortune. When I spoke to your colleagues and found out the price of the 3D, it's much cheaper and much more cost effective, and that meant that we could then use less photographers and we could reinvest that budget into other areas such as marketing. So I would definitely say, as a starting point, cost. And I think as well, I was probably skeptical at the start around the actual quality of the final product of the 3D models, because I suppose my fear was that the quality will not be as good as a professionally taken photograph. But I was really obviously surprised that it's very hard to tell the difference. And I've obviously tested that, and people can't believe when we started and I showed people, customers, colleagues, the 3D models, they couldn't actually believe that they were scanned models and not actually professionally taken photographs. So I'd say, yeah, cost, and that enabled us to make a saving and reinvest in other areas.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like, if we go into that, Matthias, like, we're going to go a lot deeper, but if you had to choose like one thing that SAC has done, what would that be that stood out?
Yeah, I think the images is a perfect example of how a small brand can really leverage the technology of 3D, not only to save money and reallocate the budget, but also to have more flexibility. But for me, and what I think of when I hear your name, Robbie, and the brand SAC Footwear, that's 3D-First, because you guys, you redefine the product detail page experience. You literally was the first one in the world that we have seen that implemented the 3D-First component on a large scale.
Yeah,
allowing the customer to actually look at the product and experience the product just the way they want to do it. Beyond. So that's like my top one of what stands out with you guys.
And why did you do that? That's like what brought you to really implement them, and then you're gonna elaborate like 3D-First. What is that when we say 3D-First?
Yeah, I think for me, footwear is just so hard. It's a different kind of ball game to clothing. There's no margin for kind of error in terms of footwear. I think the automatic position of a potential viewer in footwear is to kind of hate what you're doing. I think people are so attached to brands when it comes to footwear. They're so attached to Nike. They're so attached to their brands. Clothing, like I feel not so much. People are more flexible with choosing what brand they're going to wear clothing wise. Footwear's really difficult to crack. So for me, it was about doing something completely different that other brands are not doing, that was interactive and engaging. It's so hard to engage a new customer in footwear because they're just so attached to their existing brands that they wear and nothing else. So it's trying to engage those potential new customers and try and move someone over from wearing an established multi-million, multi-billion dollar brand to a tiny independent brand. And for me, it was like, how do we do that? We've got to stand out. We've got to do something different. And 3D felt like a really good opportunity to do that, because I was just blown away by it when I first saw it, and I saw the results, and we did some of the initial scans of the shoes. And then I started to think about, you know, with the help of you guys, the flexibility that would allow us to do different things. So for me, it was about how do we engage a customer that is already completely attached to their existing footwear brand that they've been wearing for 20 years and they won't deviate from that. And 3D felt like a really good opportunity to kind of do that. And I'm not sure, you know, it's very difficult to find something that not a lot of people are doing. And at that time when we started, I think it was about 2.5, 3 years ago now, as you say, we were one of the first, if not the first brand to do it on a wider scale. So it was really about that. How do we engage an audience and get them to start thinking about looking at our brand, not with hate, not with kind of disgust, which is the default for a lot of people when it comes to footwear, but actually to actually take a look at us and realize actually these guys are doing something different.
Yeah, and I think I remember when we talked about it, because you actually, if I recall correctly, you started out with us almost 2-3 years ago, but your first integration was just to have 2 buttons, like seeing 3D and seeing AR. And I think, you know, not only does the experience and the technology talks for itself, and you're really doing something different, and now more people have joined to what you have redefined, but you were really the first and made something different. But also, I remember when we talked about this, because obviously as a small brand, you know your quality, the quality sneakers is already there, and the price reflects that. But then you also need to mediate a perceived value to the customers and the potential buyers. Yeah. And I remember we talking about that we want to make you look like a $100 million brand, even though you're not there yet. And I think that's also 2 different ways of seeing it, and an interesting aspect to having it, both experience-wise, but also like brand perception-wise.
Yeah, cool. And just to let's say if you're watching this and you're new to 3D, like just explain like step by step, what is 3D-First?
3D-First is when you lead with the 3D experience and have 2D content and images secondary. So you populate the 3D model right in the face of the consumer instead of a traditional image, so they can, just like in a physical store, pick it up, twist and turn, and look at the details they want to see. That is what we mean with 3D-First.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, it's a bit of a scary concept to go 3D first, because, you know, it's change, isn't it? People, brands, we don't like change. Brands all kind of do the standard thing. They all have a standard template that, you know, the way their product pages look, their websites look. So it's a bit of a scary thing to get your head around. And it was for me even to start with. I was like, you know, do we definitely want to go with the 3D first? But when you realize that, when you compare the model and the photograph and realize that, you know, these 3D models, you can barely tell the difference, if at all, between a professionally taken photograph. Why wouldn't you give the potential customer the opportunity to explore that model themselves rather than just a standard photograph, which they can't do anything with apart from maybe zoom in and zoom out? But people love to explore, don't they? People love to kind of turn the model around, and so why not give them that opportunity to do that first? And it almost makes the photographs, for want of a better word, irrelevant. Apart from if you've got maybe a lifestyle photograph on there, just to make the customer, you know, see what it looks like on a model. But apart from that, it makes the the photograph's defunct in a way. So I think when a lot of people go with 3D-First like we have, you'll have less and less reliance on the photographs, even in a secondary capacity.
True.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe you can address that as well, Matthias. You're working very close to all of our customers. Is that something you see when you go 3D-First, that like the imagery becomes a little bit more, like Robbie said, irrelevant, or is not much of a focus anymore?
Yeah, I like personally, I think the only reasons for why the 2D content needs to be there in the background is because of the bigger tech giants hasn't really followed the pace of the industry. I mean, like Google, well, they have a proof of concept in the US that you can have a 3D model instead of a photo, but otherwise for the dynamic product ads on Meta or on the catalog ads on Google, you still need a photo. So somewhere in the back end or somewhere on Shopify, you still need to pass a photo to be relevant for those positions. But as soon as that happens and change, I think no one ever wants to spend more time to shoot a piece of photography. No one wants to spend time to rename the file, recompress the file, upload the file, you know, all of this time costs. So I think it's just a matter of when the rest of the ecosystem will allow that as well.
Yeah, that's cool. And then let's segue into that, Robbie. Like, you've been working with this for quite some time now. Let's dive into the results. What are the results that you are seeing when going 3D-First?
Well, the big thing, massive thing that we noticed just anecdotally through getting emails around returns, speaking to customers, is there's something about shoes. I'm not sure if it's the same with clothing. I think it is the same with clothing, but definitely with shoes, where people will buy a shoe, and regardless of the photograph, you will get returns that say it doesn't look like the photograph. It doesn't look like I've got it. It doesn't look like how I thought it would look.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing that we used to get with returns, is loads of emails from customers. And I'm kind of pulling my hair out. I'm thinking it's a photograph of the shoe. So, you know, how does it not look? How does it not look how you thought, you know, how it looks on the website? But that's quite a big thing, is you do get this from customers and people saying, oh, it doesn't look like I thought it would. So we definitely saw a reduction in that response when we went 3D-First and using the models first, because again, customers are zooming in, zooming out, spinning it around. They can see what the sole looks like. Usually you'd only use four photographs, maybe 7 product photos on a product page. That'll be the standard. A brand is either going to use 4 or 7, or somewhere in between. Having the 3D-First, they can obviously look at it from every angle and really analyze it. And I think a big learning point for me was people really do analyze it. People really do go into the detail of it. I'm quite an impulsive shopper, but most people are not impulsive, especially with footwear. They might be impulsive in other products, other markets, but people are not impulsive with footwear. Someone has to look at a pair of shoes 14 times on average before they make a purchase. So it definitely gives the consumer the opportunity to analyze the shoe in detail, have a look exactly what the sole looks like, zoom into the interior and the insole and have a look around, spin it around on every angle, and really get a clear picture on what they're going to receive. And we saw a massive reduction in returns specifically around that reason. Returns overall, but specifically around it doesn't look like I thought it would. It doesn't feel like I thought it would. Still get some returns, obviously, when you're talking about sizing, it doesn't fit. That remains, but that big reason that some people do return shoes, it kind of almost completely went away. We still get it from time to time, but it almost completely diminished.
Yeah, and I think the way we found out that was pretty remarkable, because I remember you and me were in a call, and you were like, well, there was a while since I got an email saying that it doesn't look like what it does on the product page. And that was how we started to feel like, okay, what has happened?
Yeah.
We dig into the data, and eventually we found out that we almost completely eliminated that kind of category of returns. resulting in a 29% decrease. But just that discovery that you was like, I haven't got email about that.
Yeah.
That was so funny
was
to be with you and hear that.
That was exactly it. I just kind of clicked. I was like, I haven't had an email in ages of someone saying it doesn't look like it did in the photo on your website, which used to be really common. So it did almost completely eliminate that whole category of return.
Yeah, and usually like throughout a year or so, there are multiple things that you do, of course, as a brand owner to fight returns and increase conversions. But like from what I can remember before we went 3D first and during this time period, you almost had a one-to-one copy of what you have today. Like the pricing was the same, your shipping was the same, the overall theme on Shopify was the same, everything was the same. The only thing we did better was to push the 3D in the face of the consumers and also make the virtual try-on a bit more prominent. If I recall correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. We only introduced one new kind of line on our website, one new pair of shoes in 3 different colorways. Apart from that, it was all the same products, all the same prices.
Yeah, that's super cool. And we're going to drop a link down below to, you want to read more about this case study, you can go in depth and read more about it. And like Robbie, if you were to give your like best advice to someone who is not using 3D at the moment but are interested in using 3D, what would your 3 top advice be to that brand or looking into it?
I think explore it. It doesn't cost anything to explore it. So, you know, get a scan, get a 3D model of one of your shoes and compare it. And test it. If you can do some testing, if you've got a small group of customers or clients or colleagues where you can start to test it and see people's responses, I think you'd be shocked at the positive response you'd have around it. I would also say as well, I think some brands are lagging behind in terms of taking 3D on board because of hierarchies and kind of decision making. I think for me, it's important to take risk, because without risk, you don't really get anywhere in kind of entrepreneurship. And it's not a risk now that it's all set up and it's absolutely not a risk, but it felt like a risk to start with. So my advice would be, if it feels like a risk to you, at least explore it, because I certainly don't regret it, and it's made us stand out. It's reduced returns. It's given us so much more scope and opportunity in terms of marketing and other areas as well. And that's a big factor. That would probably be my third one. Is it's not just a model on your product page with a white background. There's so much scope and opportunity to use that 3D model in many different ways. Obviously, we're now doing, in conjunction with you guys, we're now doing virtual try-on. There's augmented reality. People can bring it into their own space, have a look at it in terms of their feet, and virtually try it on themselves. But it's not just that as well. We're now using the 3D models in CGI adverts that we're going to be launching next week. Really, really exciting, kind of cutting edge adverts, and the models are the basis of that. And the adverts are actually fairly cost effective to produce, because the hard work, which is the model, has already been scanned and already been created. So we can send those models over to our CGI guy and create some really, really jaw-dropping pieces of marketing. So there's so many different opportunities.
I'm so excited about that. Can we show that one here, Robbie? Can we use that video to show that?
Absolutely. It hasn't got the final shoe in it at the minute, but it will do in a week or two. So I'm sure we can send you over the final version. You can show it here.
Awesome.
We'll put it up
because
there.
It's really cool. I have seen the preview and it's so cool.
Yeah, and I think as well, it looks great, but it's going to be easy to reproduce in various different settings and locations, because again, the 3D model has already been created of the shoe. That's the hard bit. So we're going to be doing a lot of like CGI marketing over the next 6 months.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's super interesting, and I want both your opinion on this, because we live in a world now where content is just taking over more. What are your thoughts? Maybe you can start, Matthias, just by having a 3D asset to start with, because we know sometimes when you launch a new collection, then you have like at the end you have something in 3D.
Yeah.
But if you start with the 3D model, like what type of content, what do you see for the next 2-3 years in this space?
No, but I would almost take it so far to not see it in 2-3 years. And I'm just thinking of how you have seen it, Robbie. You have really taken this holistic approach to our entire collaboration. And I think the 3D-First approach in combination with the virtual try-on on the PDP is one example, and also this CGI creative that we talked about. But you have also explored this on your start page to highlight new products. I remember when you launched the latest line of shoes, you highlighted it very well there. You have also made it easier for people to try the shoes from the collection page. You have tried it on social media. You have put like the augmented reality files just on the street and made a creative out of that. You have tried the newsletters. So I would say, like, we don't have time to mention so many use cases there are basically. But just having the model, like you said, that's a key to so many doors, and it's just the creativity that sets the limitation basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the dream for me, Matthias knows my my kind of dream going forward, but is the landing page being 3D first as well. At the minute, because we use Shopify, there's a memory and a speed issue with replacing all of the kind of photographs of all the products on the landing page. But we are able to do it, but we've got to limit the number of products that we have on the landing page. But my preference would be to completely remove photography, not just from product pages, but from landing pages as well, and really push the envelope with it, because again, particularly in the UK, all the mid-tier luxury shoe brands, they all look the same. They're all doing the same thing. Every website looks the same. So it's about trying to stand out from the crowd and really engage the audience. But as Matthias said, there's so many different opportunities to use 3D. I want to lead on it with our email campaigns as well. Obviously, we can create hyperlinks in the emails so people can go straight to virtual try-on. We can create GIFs of the models in our email campaigns, and really lead on it with our Facebook marketing, our social media marketing as well, whether that's within CGI or whether it's something simpler with the the models themselves. But really, I see no reason not to be leading on it and not to be reliant on it.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I had a question like, what's next for you? Like, is this something you want to add to that? You explain a little bit of your plans moving forward, but if there's something else that you like, okay, we're going to do the marketing, we're going to do all of this stuff, it is something else like in the future for SAC Footwear.
I think that would be it. I would love to have a catalog of all our shoes with the 3D models all on a landing page, or like a catalog page. We've started the what's next bit in terms of the CGI, and we've seen huge engagement from the big brands who have started doing that probably just within the last 6 months, but more so 3 months. It's kind of caught on. So we're trying to utilize that aspect of things in terms of the CGI, and really explore further opportunities, future opportunities, because I think there's so many new things that are cropping up all the time, enabled by the fact that we've got those 3D models. So it's continuing to explore how we can utilize those models and what further opportunities there are, again, to engage an audience.
Yeah, Yeah, that's good. And I have a question for you both. Like, Matthias, you have helped a lot of brands go live with 3D. Robbie, you have done a lot in SAC Footwear. Like, if you were to give your best advice in how to become successful with 3D, what would that be?
I think Robbie nailed it when he said, like, you got to risk something to earn something.
Yeah.
And I have actually forgotten about the use case that you just talked about, that we tried to actually replace all of the images on the collection pages as well with 3D. And I think that's such a practical example of how brilliant you are in that mindset, that you're really challenging, like, so hard that even the browsers can't manage to do what you want. You really try to redefine the world of e-commerce. And if you wouldn't be such a guy, we wouldn't even be here talking about 3D-First today. You were the biggest reason for why we had created this kind of feature. So I think that the biggest advice is just to echoing what Robbie said. You got to risk it. You got to try it. You got to analyze it.
Yeah.
If the result is not positive, well, at least then you became smarter and you can narrow down what you should focus on.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, I feel as well, you know, we do quite a lot of social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and advertising now has changed. I think people are sick of adverts, sick of having products pushed in their face, whether that's, you know, through traditional methods or whether it's through social media. So it's trying to find something new, because people will engage with something when they see something new. And we know that we go viral when we're doing something that no one else has done before. So it's constantly trying to push the envelope with that and look at new ways of exploring how we can use 3D. You know, in the future, can we start doing more things with AI, and is there more opportunities there that people are not yet using and utilizing? So it's how we can explore new ways of looking at things that the existing brands, just a lot of brands have not caught on yet. Again, whether that's because of hierarchy or decision making, or they don't like change, but there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, I like that. And like, now we're gonna keep this like short and sweet, as we have done. We talked more than maybe we think. So I'm just gonna let you two, if you want to close with something. Otherwise, I will put a pin in it, and we're gonna put some links below. And of course, you can always reach out to me, Matthias, or Robbie if you have questions or there's something that you are wondering. And then we will see you at the next webinar, unless if you have something that you want to close with, like, I need to get this said.
Well, yes, one thing that I thought of, you know, I know you swapped out the photos to the 3D generated photos because of cost reasons and efficiency reasons. Yeah. But I also think, you know, this is a practical example of what kind of result it could have. Like, not only, I think, did the 3D help you with this and the technology on its own, it was also the fact that you actually showed a more true representation of the physical product. Because sometimes when I talk with other brands and other footwear brands, there is always this one creative guy that want to retouch the photo to its perfect edge, want to brighten the color a little bit, want to have them so sharp. And at the end of the day, you have a customer receiving the product at home, getting disappointed, costing someone a lot of time in managing the return, but also costing the company a bit of money to actually taking the cost for the return. So I think I just want to end with that and say it's so inspiring to have someone like Robbie, where you really want to make the best for the consumer, and then the numbers comes with that. It's not like what you think, it's what you
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we never really did it to start with to specifically reduce returns. Specifically, we didn't do it specifically around that. We did it to give the customer a better experience. But I would agree with what Matthias said. And, you know, I know we mentioned it before, but risk, if it feels like a risk at the start, that's understandable, because you're moving away from traditional ways of presenting your product. But really, if you look at the the pros and cons. The pros far outweigh really any cons that may exist. And I feel like, but I felt like this for 3 years. I feel like in 5 years' time, everyone will be doing it. So, you know, do you want to wait and delay and kind of jump on it, you know, when everyone's used to it, or do you want to kind of be a bit of a trailblazer and try and do something different that's gonna capture an audience?
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you both for a really great ending of a great conversation. We are out of time, so I just want to close by thanking you, Matthias, thanking you, Robbie.
Thank you, Robbie.
And for a great conversation. And for you who's watching, hopefully you have learned something, you become a little bit smarter. And like we said, if there's any questions, just reach out. And I hope you have a good day. So thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Hey, thank you guys. Great show. And once again, big thank you, Robbie, for joining us. I actually took some notes here on the Robbie's 3 top best advices, and I just want to iterate them once again. And the first thing Robbie said was that you really need to invest in exploring this. And he basically said that the cost isn't that high. The second thing he said is that you shouldn't worry about taking risk. You really need to take the risk. It's a great way of exploring and learning. And then the last thing he said is, don't only look upon this as getting a 3D model on your web that you can twist and turn. The 3D model actually represents an opportunity in many other areas where you can save money in terms of product images, but also do advertising in a way you've never done before. And he talked about CGI advertising and virtual try-on and so on. So great work, guys. I just want to remind everyone watching that we did a previous webinar where we had footwear brand Nubik visiting us and talking about conversion. So also an opportunity for you that want to learn more. And please click that like button down there if you enjoyed the show. Please share with your colleagues, and don't be a stranger. If you want to reach out and talk to us, please do. Hope to see you soon again. Bye.